Okay, how about a quick recap here? We've looked at selection, but I do like isolation mode. I think that's pretty cool in working with groups and using the group selection tool. Getting a little further down this rabbit hole. We've looked at smart guides. I do like those. We've looked at rotating and resizing, which are pretty straightforward. Let's do some transforming. Let's just have a little bit of fun with shapes, and maybe that's the name of this particular lesson. Open up transform.ai in your working folder, and over here, this button right here has all the transform tools. You've got width and warp, twirl, pucker, and bloat. Those have got to be interesting names. Scallop, crystallize, and wrinkle. Let's tear those off. I like that feature. Pull it up right about here so we can see it. Now the tool itself, you can see it right here. Based on which one of these you choose, will distort any shape. So I've got 3 stars up on the screen, and I have the word melting. Now after I made the word melting, I converted it into outline form because you can't transform a piece of text. And we'll talk more about how we do stuff like that when we get to text. I just wanted to have something on the screen. The first one is a variable width tool. Now what it does is it works with strokes. If I select it and come over here and grab, I can begin changing the strokes. So variable width. Now we'll get more into this tool later in another chapter. We're going to use it to draw leaves and stems on plants. It's actually a pretty versatile tool, and it allows you to take a stroke, which is only one particular width, and change its width. You can even come in and say get here and bring it in or out anywhere that you want. So you can do some pretty cool things with it. Let me undo that stuff. Okay, back to normal in a sense, if there is anything called normal. Let's do this. Let's pick up the next one. The next one is a warping tool, but I think of it, I don't know, more like finger painting. And if I come over here and begin warping, finger painting, if you will, basically what it does is it begins changing the shape as I just click and drag. Now, it's not necessarily all that predictable, but it creates these kind of wonky shapes. So maybe we could do something a little bit more like a strange-looking starfish, or maybe a walking man, something like that. That's the warping tool. Let me go ahead and undo all that stuff. There we go. The next one is called twirl. Let me show you what it does quick here. Come down here, and let's go to the next one here, or maybe this one. Well, it twirls. Now, the size of the brush determines the area it works in. So let me undo that stuff real quick. How do you make the brush a different size? Actually, you can do it in 2 ways. This is the easiest way to me. Is hold down the Alt key. You see a little L there? Now, that's the Option key on a Mac and Alt in Windows. And when you drag, it makes it bigger, any size you want. You let go of the Alt key, you got a new brush. So let's make it about the size of one of those stars, like that. And then I come over here again and do a twirl. And I don't know what it is, but I like it. Okay, so we can twirl things. The next 2, let me move this a little bit over here, are pucker and bloat. Interesting names for tools. If I get right about here on this one and click, now watch, I'm going to click pretty fast. Wow, I didn't even see what it did, Andy. It worked so fast. Well, let me do this. Let me undo it. You can control these tools. If I double click on a tool, you get the controls for that tool. Now the global controls here control the brush for all the tools. But each tool will have its own things down here. For example, intensity is the problem. It's working way too fast. I want to watch what it does. So I'm going to click here and take that down to 1. Click OK. Now that's global. That means all the tools. If I come over here again, watch now. Well, now I can control the process. Now, it's the same thing with bloat. Bloat goes the other way. You get much more control if you slow the tool down. Let me undo a couple times here. The next one over here is called a scallop tool. Now, let me go ahead and double click, and let's bring up the intensity to about 50 again. Notice you have like complexity. Well, you'll see that in a second what it does. Let me go ahead and click OK. And let's make the brush with an Alt key or an Option key smaller. It adds a lot of anchor points in a very random way. You know what that reminds me of? Me when I've had too much coffee. That's the scallop. Again, you can control the amount. Let me double click on that one again. The intensity, the complexity, the details. If that's too much, you can slow it down. It's up to you. Play around with these options. The next one over is called crystallize, and we'll leave everything alone and just come over here and kind of crystallize this one. Again, that looks like me and coffee again. All right, let's undo. I'll leave that one alone. My favorite one, I actually like this one, and I've reserved melting for this one. I'm going to go in here and double click on it. I'm going to take the intensity of the brush up even higher. Okay, I'll leave everything else on normal or on default. Now watch what happens. Let me do this too. Let me hold the Alt key down and make a brush that's wider. Maybe something about like that. And now watch what happens. Well, to me, okay, it's called the wrinkle tool. I call it the melting tool. And it's because I use it for stuff like this, like it's melting something. We call this in actually marketing and training education a double impact. One side of your brain processes text and the other side processes images. If you have an image that literally looks like what it's saying, like melting, you'll have a tendency to remember it more. So those are the transform tools. You actually have 8 of them. They work on objects. They have to be objects. Text must be converted if you're going to do that to them. And, well, you can use them in a really creative way. To me, if they help say what you're trying to say, if they help support the message of your artwork, I think they're a lot of fun to work with. But like I said before, they're probably not tools you're going to use every day.